What's up, Scramblers? So today we're kicking off something a little bit different to what I normally do, because I've noticed a heap of videos out there about scrambling off-road and doing all these cool adventures, but no one actually covers off some pretty important things about bike preparation and maintenance and gear and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to focus on this video series is trying to help you who are considering riding off-road on a scrambler or something similar, so that you can prepare and make sure that you don't A, wreck your bike, B, wreck yourself, and C, that you have fun. So over the last 18 months, myself and a couple of others have kicked off a motorbike garage designed to teach people how to work on their bikes. I thought, hey, why don't I mesh the two together and try to teach people how to work on their bikes, prepare them for scrambler adventures or just whatever else they're doing, and then also try to prevent some of those things that could leave you stranded in the middle of nowhere because you should have prepared. So if you're interested in that, please just do 3 things. Like this video, subscribe, and click the notifications little bell, because that lets you know when I've uploaded a new video, which I'm gonna do over the next like 10 or 15 weeks. Without any further ado, let's get stuck into the actual details so you can learn some stuff. Okay, so today's lesson is going to be a really quick walk around of the bike, and I'm just going to point out a bunch of the stuff that I'm going to cover in more detail in each of the lessons. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and you'll get a video every week on a new topic for the next, like, I don't know, 20 weeks. Let's aim for 20 weeks. That's like half a year. Sweet, let's go. So first one that I want to talk about is the chain. Now, you need to make sure that your chain's in good working order, and we'll just quickly flick to that down here and show you that my chain is in pretty bad nick at the moment, because last I rode it off-road and I realized that the frame was broken. Womp womp. So we're gonna have to give that some love, and that's going to be in the next episode. So we're looking at tires next. These tires I've got here are like probably more like a 50-50 sort of tire. You can see the pretty heavy knobby pattern on them up here, like really big chunks and big grooves between them, so you can get really good hookup in soft sand and that sort of stuff. So you might have seen the fact that I've ridden my bike on sand, and these are unreal for that. But there's always a trade-off. So what I'm going to go through when I talk about tires and that sort of stuff is what you're doing with your trade-off and what you want to get out of your bike, and then maybe just some suggestions for different types of riders. So if you're only going to go off-road once every 6 months or something like that, then what I'll do is give you a really rough idea of some tires to look at and consider. So the next one is suspension. Rear suspension here. These are just twin shocks. Some bikes come with a single shock, or also known as a monoshock. But what I'm going to talk through is just real basics of setting up your suspension for on-road, setting up your suspension for off-road, and what the difference is. And then also just the base level of setting up your suspension. So adjusting the preload, which on my bike is up here. There's a little collar, and basically what that does is set the springs to be able to carry your weight. Depending on how heavy you are, the springs will need certain adjustments. So what I'll do is go into that in more detail in that next episode. Okay, so next one is checking your oil and oil filter. So up under here, that's where your oil filter is on a Triumph Scrambler. And then generally you've got a sump plug up here where you're going to use a whatever it is to undo it, and then drop all your oil out, and then check your oil, and then put it back in, fill your oil back up. That is it in a nutshell, but I'm going to go into more detail on different types of oils and that sort of stuff, and just how to check it and make sure it's all good. So the next one is your air filter, which sits in here behind this cover for Triumph scramblers. But basically, you want to make sure that you check your air filter every single time you go off-road, because it can fill up with mud and dirt and that sort of stuff, and what that might do is go into your engine, which you definitely don't want. So make sure that you check your air filter. I'm going to go into that in a little more detail about some better air filters to use as well for off-road, because the stock ones that they come with aren't great. So yeah, I'll give you some options on that. Cool. Right, so this one's a little bit more near and dear to my heart, because right now the bike is undergoing some serious surgery. I had a massive crack in my frame up in here. So basically, the way that I found that was my bike was leaning over really far on the side stand, and I was like, oh, well, is my side stand bent? No, the side stand is not bent. It was actually, the frame was broken. So the pushing of the kickstand that way had twisted this part of the frame to the point where it snapped all the way through here. So it was like a twist brake. You could tell by the brake, especially the fact that it's diagonal across the bar. It's like a torsion twist. The only thing that was holding it together was my crash bars, which is pretty good. And that is also something else I'm going to get into when I talk about checking your frame, and just in general talking about the fact that when you do have a scrambler, it's going to go through a lot of torture and vibration and that sort of stuff. So you can't assume that everything's just going to be perfect all the time. So you do need to check those things. And if there is something a little off, like your bike is leaning over too far, you need to check. So next one is radiator, this bad boy. Now you need to be careful with your radiator when you're going off-road through mud and that sort of stuff. These radiators actually have a tendency to fill up with, for me, it was sand. And when it blocked and it filled up with sand, it actually was really bad and overheated. When it overheated, it burned off a little bit of my coolant. And then when I went to ride it the next time, I hadn't topped up the coolant. And silly me, I know, I should have done it, but basically the bike was starting to overheat really quickly, and I was like, oh shit, this is bad. This can really, overheating can damage your engine so badly. So what you want to do is make sure you can avoid that by keeping your radiator clear and checking your fluid. So I'm going to go into more detail in that in my radiator episode. Alright, so the next one is brakes. You can see I've obviously got some big twin disc brakes on this bad boy. They are great for stopping, but they also need a fair bit of maintenance. You need to check them, check the pads, and also check your brake fluids. So in our episode on brakes, we're going to go into that. So here's one that I see all the time, a question about luggage. I use this Hepco & Becker side bag. I'm going to go into it in more detail and basically how to use it, and then the little functions of it, and then how to mount it. On top of that, I'm going to talk about a couple of episodes about moto camping and luggage and that sort of stuff, because I've found some pretty cheap but awesome stuff. You can spend a lot of money and not get a whole lot extra when it comes to bags. So what I wanted to do is give people just my lowdown of what I've learned and how I do it. That's it. So one other thing that I wanted to cover was moto camping and overnight rides and that sort of stuff, how I pack, and then what sort of baggage that I use, and sort of the order that I pack it in so that it's easier, so you can get the right stuff when you need it and that sort of thing. So I'll go into that in more detail in another episode. So I hope you found that beneficial from just an overview. I will be doing more videos on more different topics and that sort of stuff, but I just wanted to at least get this kick started and talk about my Scrambler Tips sort of series of videos that I'm going to do. So if that interests you, make sure that you like, subscribe, and then there's a little notifications bell that you can tick. So whenever I do upload something, it's going to let you know and you can see it. Otherwise, there's going to be links in the description below, and I'll update that as I go and upload each of the videos. I'm going to try and drop one a week for the next 20 weeks, so we'll see how we go with that, given the fact that I also run this garage and work a full-time day job. So fingers crossed I can get that done. But I hope to see you soon, and in the meantime, keep scrambling.